What is going on YouTube? Greetings from the beautiful Ruby Princess, and we are in St. Kitts today, which I'm really excited about. I've never been here before, so I can't wait to get off the ship and go explore. But I figured I had this beautiful backdrop. It's really quiet on board the ship right now. Figured let's go out and make a video. A few weeks ago, I solicited you guys for some questions that I could answer in a Q&A video. That wasn't a live stream. So for those who missed the live streams and don't get to ask their questions, they could throw a question out there and I'd answer it in kind of a Q&A video that people can watch anytime they want. And a lot of the questions are some very common questions I get, and I'll be able to refer people to this video in the future without them having to watch one of my big long live streams trying to search for the answer. So without further ado, let's jump into that. So my first question comes from a new subscriber. His name is Man of Wisdom. Love the name. He says, what do you do for health insurance, routine medical visits, and prescriptions while you're doing this 1 year at sea? And I'll answer that question just generally for all full-time travel. So I was in the military for 20 years, so I have health insurance through TRICARE for life. It's, really fortunate to have it. It's $15 a month, but don't let that discourage you. There are a lot of full-time travelers that have solved this health insurance issue. Check out Grounded Life Travels. That's one of my favorite channels, and they have a whole video on their $250 a month health insurance policy, and they're in their 50s. So they've made it work. So specifically to being at sea, so it's just like anything else. You just go to your appointments when you can go to your appointments. Since I'm in the US most of the time, I just schedule my appointments around my at-sea adventure. If any emergency was to pop up, there is a medical facility on board the ship with a doctor. Every cruise ship has to have a doctor on board, at least one. Some have multiple doctors and nurses, but they have to have at least one doctor on board. So if you have any emergency situations, you can go down to the medical on board the ship. And if it's super serious, they're going to either medevac you off via helicopter, or they're going to pull into the next port and get you help from the hospital in whatever port they're in, or if they need to fly you back to the United States, that's what they will do. Now, a lot of credit cards come with, like credit cards that you will book your cruise with, come with trip insurance, like health insurance, emergency evacuation insurance. So check your credit card and see if you have that. That's something to think about. Cruise lines also offer that when you buy a cruise. There's like travel protection that also sometimes covers emergency evacuation and stuff like that. So you got to do your research on that stuff. But I have the Chase Sapphire Reserve credit card, which I have a link below to it if that's something you're interested in. And they cover emergency evacuation insurance. So if any kind of emergency happened on one of these trips, the Chase Sapphire Reserve credit card would cover it for me. As far as prescriptions go, you can get prescriptions for much cheaper than in the US, and a lot of the places you're going to pull into, especially when you pull into places like Mexico, you can find the prescriptions you normally have for probably cheaper. But what you want to do is plan for that before your cruise. So I took my mother on a cruise, and we were actually gone for over a month, and she has medication that she needs that actually needs to be chilled. So I got on Amazon, I found a thing that you can put medicine in that needs to be chilled, and it lasts for 72 hours. And so we put her medicine in that thing. We flew over to Italy. Then when I got to my Airbnb in Italy, we put it in the refrigerator. And then when we got to the cruise ship, all cruise ship cabins have refrigerators. We put her stuff into the refrigerator on the cruise ship. I'm sure if you're in a cabin without a refrigerator, you could go down to the medical on the ship and they'd be able to refrigerate it for you. So I know that was a long answer, but it was kind of a more in-depth question than you would think. All right, let's jump into the next question. This is a two-part question. So Better Neurodivergent Travel asks, how has your approach to planning and booking cruises evolved over time, if it has, and what ports are you most looking forward to? So we'll answer the first part first. So obviously I'm a big proponent of Cruise Plum, like the fruit, Cruise Plum. If you've been watching my channel, I have a whole video about how to find cheap cruises, and it mostly revolves around using the search engine Cruise Plum to find your cruise. And so I've been doing that forever and tracking cruises that way. I used to switch ships a lot because I really do like experiencing new ships. But when you're moving ships every month, it becomes a little tiresome because sometimes you got to go to a new port. At a minimum, you got to pack everything up and get over to a new ship. And it just kind of becomes a pain in the butt dealing with embarkation days all the time. So over time, I've stayed on ships longer, like leading up to this ship, which I am on for 103 days total. I've already been on board for like 34, 35 days, something like that. But so yeah, it has evolved over time in that respect. And what ports am I most looking forward to? So I'm going on a 7-day West Coast cruise and we're hitting the port of Astoria. I'm a huge Goonies fan, child of the 80s, and I grew up with that being like my favorite movie. I also know the actor who played Chunk in that movie, and Google him and you'll see him now. He's actually really skinny. You'd never even recognize him, and he's an entertainment lawyer. I met him when I was a lawyer. So I'm really excited about going to Astoria to see all the sets of Goonies, or the house and the big rock and all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about Astoria. Hey, just a quick break and then we'll jump back into the Q&A. If you're enjoying this video, smash that thumbs up button. It helps more people find it. And if you're not subscribed, like 70% of you watching my videos are not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you want to be notified anytime I put out a video or I go live from some amazing place like St. Kitts, make sure you hit that notification bell. Back to the video. Okay, let's jump into the next question. So the next question comes from one of my longtime subscribers, TextMedRGR. Do you go to any formal or dress-up dinners on cruises? Why or why not? So when I first started cruising, I brought a sport coat with me and some slacks, and I was able to dress up. But to be honest with you, I didn't do it very often. I try to avoid formal nights. You can go down to the main dining room on most ships without having to get too dressed up. 90% of ships make you at least put on pants and a collared shirt. If you're on Norwegian, you can go in flip-flops and shorts, which is amazing. That's why one of the reasons I love Norwegian so much. But here on Princess, I have to put on pants. And I've said this before, people always laugh. I really don't like putting on pants. I like being in shorts like I am right now. I like to live in shorts mostly because I had to wear a uniform for 20 years in the military, and then when I became a lawyer, I was in suits every day, and I just vowed to wear pants as little as possible in my life. So I tend to avoid the formal nights and the get dressed up nights, and you can avoid them on cruise ships. You just go to the buffet and to the the upper decks where the pool is and everything. There's a bunch of other people that are avoiding the formal nights as well. So good question. All right, let's jump into the next question. That question comes from TR Belcher. So that makes me think of Bob's Burgers when I hear the last name Belcher. Definitely interested to hear about your best and favorite travel credit cards. So I've talked about this a lot. I am a user of Chase credit cards almost exclusively now. My main card is the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which I have linked down below. I only have 2 cards linked down below, but I use 3 Chase credit cards. There's a lot of videos on the Chase trifecta. One of my favorite channels is a channel called Ask Sebby, S-E-B-B-Y. And if you just Google Chase trifecta and Ask Sebby, he'll explain it well, much better than I can, although I do have a video about it. And yeah, that's my main card. It gives me 3 points for travel. It gives me 3 points for dining out. And that's like 90% of the money I spend in my life. So I'm getting max points for that. It has a great trade-in value. I've been traveling since 2019 and I have not paid for a flight the entire time I've been traveling because of credit card points with Chase. I usually book through them or I transfer it to a partner that's beneficial, like Chase points to Southwest is real easy to do. So when I'm in the United States, I fly Southwest mostly, and I get a huge exchange rate from Chase to Southwest. And you just have to learn about that stuff. I'm by no means an expert, but I feel like I have the best card, which is the Chase Sapphire Reserve. I just recently got the IHG card. I'm going to start using their hotel benefits, and that one's $95 a year. And if you're a cruiser like me, it totally makes sense because every year you get 1 free night at a hotel up to a $200 value. So if you've been cruising for a while, you know the day you fly in, usually fly in the day before the cruise, the hotels jack up the prices of the hotels on that day because a bunch of people book hotels. So now I got that one free night. So that basically, that $95 I pay for basically pays for itself because I'm getting a $200 a night hotel on a cruise night. The next question comes from another longtime subscriber. Sandra Rapp 3047 says, what was your favorite cruise in Europe and how long were you cruising in Europe? So I was in Europe about 4 months, maybe a little bit longer. I took a cruise from Fort Lauderdale that went to Iceland, and then it went to the Norwegian fjords, and then we started sailing out of Southampton, England, and we went into the Mediterranean, all around England, into Scandinavia. It was just amazing. I had an amazing time cruising over there, and I can't wait to do it again. Okay, the next question comes from moderator extraordinaire, Going Green Mom. She asked, knowing what you know now, you're in early retirement, what things would you do different? I don't know if I would do anything different other than getting a credit card that allowed me to accumulate travel points a lot earlier than I did. I did it about 2 or 3 years before I started traveling full time. And I always think about if I would have had a travel points credit card system like 10 years before that, I'd have like millions of points and I'd be flying first class everywhere. So that's what I would do if I was somebody. I'd start banking all those points. Obviously, be responsible with credit cards. I don't carry any debt. I don't have any debt at all. I'm a firm believer in zero debt. It's what's made this full-time travel life possible for me. So if you can't control yourself with credit cards, you don't pay them off right away, then don't do this. But if you can, if you have self-discipline and self-control and you can pay them off right away, it's a great life hack, building up those credit card points and using them for free flights, free hotels, all that kind of stuff. Like I just got that IHG credit card. I got 165,000 points. That's going to get me 23 days in a beach hotel in Thailand, like for free. That's a pretty good deal if you ask me. Your second question was, what advice would you give to others that are wanting to work at least some while traveling into their lives? So, I mean, the biggest thing is you need a job that you can do remotely. So if you have a job right now that you say, you know what, I can do this from home, or the entire pandemic, I did this job from home, so I know I can do this job from home, then approach your employer about maybe staying on and doing that job, or looking for similar jobs that would allow you to work more remotely. I know tons of people who are going to quit their job to go into full-time retirement and went to their employer and said, hey, I'm quitting. The employer said, would you consider working remotely? And they were like, sure. And so they just kind of backdoored into it. And I've heard that story a million times. So maybe you can do your current job remotely. If you can't, start looking for other alternatives. Early in this channel, I wanted to show people that you could get a job remotely, full-time, and make enough money to travel full-time. I got a job with VIP Kids. I was able to build up my income to $2,000 to $3,000 a month doing VIP Kids, and that's enough to travel full-time. Look for an alternative like that. For me, it was teaching English online to Chinese kids, but maybe for you, it's something else. Okay, my next question comes from another longtime subscriber, Henry. Henry asks, I would love for you to make an updated video on being a minimalist and what the pros and cons of being a minimalist are. So if you've been watching my channel for a long time, like actually there wasn't very many people watching my channel when I made this video, but I made a video about becoming a minimalist. And I started it about 2 years before I decided to travel full time. I started scaling down my life, selling all my stuff, and just preparing myself for not owning anything and basically living out of my backpack. And I'll be honest with you, it was so freeing. Like, I didn't realize how weighed down I was by all the stuff I owned. My big Jeep, TVs, all that kind of stuff. Just keeping up with the Joneses type of stuff. And when I got rid of that stuff, it was so liberating. And not just because I was able to travel full time, I just lived a better life not owning that stuff. So I don't know if I'll do an updated video about it. Maybe I will in the future. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on minimalism. I would never go back. So the next question comes from Calvin Marshall, another longtime subscriber. I first started following you in van life, really liked your travels. Do you ever think once cruising is over, van life will start again? Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned it a bunch of times on my channel that I'm trying to find a Honda Element. The prices are coming down on them, and I'd love to like work with someone like Johnny's Journey and build out like a micro camper that I can just park at my mother's house. And my goal for next year is to travel all different kinds of ways, all the ways I've traveled. I'm gonna fly to Thailand in May, get a bunch of dental work done, live there for 30 days, document what it costs to live in Thailand for 30 days, then probably go to Vietnam, the Philippines, Cambodia, Singapore, and some other places over there. And also integrate cruising into that. There's a bunch of great cruises out of Singapore, including a Trans-Pacific from Singapore to LA that would get me back to the US around October, November timeframe. Hopefully by then I'll have a Honda Element that maybe I can build out. I'd like to integrate all the ways I've traveled into my life. People always ask me, what is your the favorite way you've traveled? And I say all of them. I love all of them. It's hard for me to choose one or the other. I love van life. I love living in new exotic countries for a month or 2 or 3 at a time. I love cruising. I loved motorcycling around Thailand. So I'd like to integrate all of them into my future travel life. So I know that's a long answer to a short question, but yeah, I definitely am going to do some form of van life in the future. Maybe not full time, but I'm going to integrate it into my travels. And I think building out a micro camper would be a lot of fun, and I think my audience would be interested in that. All right, so the next question comes from Sonia, also another longtime subscriber. Followed my husband into retirement almost 3 years ago, but I still maintain my nursing credentials, and I want to pick up some nursing contracts in the future. That's super, super smart of you to do. And you're asking me if I maintain my credentials. For those who don't know, I was a lawyer before I started traveling full time, and I do. I am still barred in the state of New York. I have annual CLE requirements that I have to do. Now they're biannual, but I have to do requirements every year, and I have to pay the state of New York money to maintain my license. But I do maintain my license. I just renewed it recently, actually, for 2 years. So I'm good for another 2 years. If I want to go practice law, I can. All right, next question comes from a good friend of mine and fellow Navy Master Chief, the Traveling Frogman. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, you should check it out. I mean, we were both Master Chiefs in the Navy, but he's a certified badass. He was a Navy SEAL Master Chief, which is like as good as it gets in the badass spectrum of life. But he also travels full time now, and he has some great videos on YouTube, so make sure you check out his YouTube channel. He's asking me about traveling with a backpack. Do I still do it, or what am I carrying now? So I started having some back issues. I've had some back issues a while that date back to a motorcycle accident I had while I was in the military, and it started to act up again pretty bad. So I switched to a rolling bag, which I'll show you in this video, by a company called Level 8. They reached out to me and said, hey, we want to send you this bag, and if you like it, you can talk about it. If you don't talk about it. I haven't really talked about it in my videos, but I'll be honest with you, I love this thing. It's pretty affordable. It's carry-on only in most places. There's some places in Asia that probably make you check it, but I love it. It's like twice the space as I had before. And what I love about this bag are the wheels on the bottom. Most roller bags that I've had in the past, like Samsonite and stuff like that, the wheels just suck. It just doesn't push around very easy. I can pull it behind my back like you normally do, but I can also just lightly push it through the airport and it just flies. I mean, it'll get away from me if I don't keep my hand on it. All right, that's your questions. If you got any more questions, maybe I'll do a part 2 of this video. Throw them down below and I'll answer them in the future. And if you enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button and hit that subscribe button. Like 70% of the people watching my videos nowadays aren't subscribed. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you next video.